Hello virtual world lovers! This is a very short video but about a very important subject. I'm gonna talk about Second Life neighbors. When are they important? How are they important? And how you should relate with them or no. So here we go. Well, first of all, if you are in a sim in a whole island 256 per 256, either a homestead, either a full region or a super full region, if you have a whole sim for you, either from Linden Labs, either from a private landlord, then you don't have the neighbors problem, because you have a whole island surrounded by ocean, you rent the whole sim, you make the rules, you make the bills, blah, you got me. So this only happens, the necessity and the importance to deal with neighbors only happens when you are renting either from a private landlord but part of the sim, a parcel, big, small, medium, whatever. So you are renting from a landlord, you are in that sim surrounded by water, but there are several parcels and you are renting only one of them, so you will have neighbors on the other parcels. Or when you go to mainland, even if you have a whole sim in mainland, usually whole sims are connected on the borders to other small lands or other whole sims. So in mainland it's impossible to have the four corners of your sim, even if it's a whole sim, free from neighbors. At least you can have a mainland sim which has one side all on the water, even two sides if you are lucky, but at least two sides of your borders will be connecting to other mainlands, either sims, either very lot of small parcels of neighbors. So you'll have to deal with neighbors. This said, what is important? Why is it so important to think about neighbors? In Second Life, having a land, so I am talking about having a sim on mainland or a parcel on mainland or having a parcel in a landlord sim. In those situations that you deal with neighbors, it's very difficult for you when you start building something little by little, or even if you don't build a lot, you are putting things together, decorating, you are doing stuff. It's not easy to just one day, just like overnight, you click your fingers and you get another land, you don't like your neighbors and you move to other land. Like moving all your stuff. Sometimes if it's just a simple house with a few trees or whatever, you can select them all, copy to your inventory or take to your inventory and then paste and just move around. But that's not the usual thing. Even when in small houses there's always a tree here, a stone there, an animal here, a pet, whatever. So it's very hard in Second Life to just be angry with your neighbors or tired of their shit and just move to another place. It will give you a lot of work to do that moving. So it's very important to be aware of your neighbors and to avoid that ultimate solution, which is moving. That's why it's so important. Personally, I like to make sure when I rent I never rent on mainland because of that. But when I rent on private landlords, it's the case I have now. It's the Elysium startup. It's the 16th of a sim. It's a small parcel. I make sure the covenant is generous. The covenant doesn't have many rules, so everyone is free to build and do what they want, and there's not those crazy rules that you can build this, you cannot build that. So a way to be in a parcel in a private landlord sim, enjoying just a small square or whatever you have on that parcel, a way to avoid problems with your neighbors will be choose a sim from a landlord either homestead or full region, that has a generous covenant. It's a mixed zone, you can do whatever you want. Maybe you don't need a mixed zone, maybe you just want to have your home, and you say, oh, I don't need to choose a mixed zone parcel or an adult parcel, because I'm only having my home with my just one or two friends sometimes. But if you get into trouble with your neighbors, even if it's their fault, they do shit, you talk with them, they get angry with you, even if it's their fault. Well, if by any reason, your fault or their fault, you get in trouble with your neighbors, it will be very difficult for your neighbor to report you to the landlord or get you into trouble if the covenant is very allowing, because there's nothing they can say, oh, the covenant says they can do that and he did it, look, and then you get into trouble. So be aware, it's a way to avoid future problems if you are in a rented sim from a landlord in a parcel, big or small, whatever. Now, when you are even in private landlords, or especially in mainland, it doesn't matter if it's a whole sim or if it's just a medium land, a quarter, or even a small tiny land, never ever decide to get that land bought or rented. Never make your decision to buy that land based on what you see around you on your neighbors. This is very simple to explain. Imagine you see a place, you want to build a house by the ocean, and you see your neighbors also have houses by the oceans, and that's fine. But there's one thing. Either in private parcels, in private landlords in parcel areas, when you have several neighbors, either in mainland, a whole sim, or a small land, your neighbors will not stay the same, okay? You can have neighbors that next month change, next week, or even tomorrow. Like, you look around, you say, oh, this is cool, there are no band lines, people are not bumping into band lines, like people can fly, can walk, explore, nice area. Look, when you're buying land with neighbors, expect the worst, always. So when you think about your project, I'm gonna get this land, expect that a lot of shit can grow up, like you have a nice area with a garden, and then you have a sci-fi building. You have something like this or that, and the next morning it's gone and it's a rotating shit over there, or monsters or emitters with butterflies flying around. So always expect that. Expect that anything can happen around your parcel with your neighbors, and expect band lines. Even if there are no band lines, the moment you want to get the land, expect there's gonna be. So always make your decision counting on the worst, like crazy shit going around being built high or tall or horrible or out of the theme of the sim, or bind lines. Always expect that, because sooner or later neighbors change, and neighbors change a lot. You wake up one morning and you see it empty, you wake up the next morning and it's wild stuff. So always when you get land with neighbors, always expect that. Of course, in private landlords, if you get a parcel, you will, if there is a complicated covenant, there's also a way for you to defend yourself. And if it's a residential area, the covenant says no clubs, no stores, no blah blah blah. You can talk to your landlord and say, look, my neighbor is doing a club, a lot of people here, a lot of shitty lights going around, noise, a load on the server, and the covenant clearly says you cannot build a club. So you can always defend yourself, but you are also exposed to be attacked. And sometimes things are not black and white, things are gray. You do something that you think it's okay with the covenant, but your neighbor finds a way to explain the landlord that that's not according to the covenant. Not everything is black and white. So you get good and bad. So when you go to a covenant that is more demanding, you have more ways to defend yourself and get your neighbors into place if they go out of place, but you always get more possibilities of trouble if you build your little funny things and your neighbor doesn't like it. So I would, private landlords renting a parcel, I would definitely prefer 1,000 times a covenant that is very permissive. Even, remember, even when you don't need the things, oh, you can do clubs, you can do breathables, you can do that, you're not going to do that, but go for that. Because if it's everything top crazy stuff is allowed, then you will be allowed also, and there will never be excuses from your neighbors to report you on the landlord. So that will leave you more in peace. Just gotta abstract, build a massive wall of mountains with waterfalls, and do whatever you want inside, abstract from your neighbors. Because once again, even in private landlords, your neighbors will change. And in Second Life, people buy and sell abandoned land, they change their minds. Even a nice neighbor with a nice project, the neighbor stays, though the neighbor does not change. Your next neighbor is someone that has a beautiful thing. Even if the neighbor does not change, it goes away and another guy gets the land and do crazy shit. Even if the neighbor stays, the neighbor can decide, like 1 month from now, I'm tired of these bullshit forests and birds, and I'm gonna do a funky club, and the covenant allows it. And if it's mainland, there's no covenant. Look, in mainland, either you have a sim. Of course, if you have a sim, you rule the whole sim, but you are connected always to other sims. So small parcels, in mainland there's no covenant, so there's no tiny little bitty way for you to report anyone, unless people are doing things which are illegal against the Second Life toast. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about crazy shit going around. You can have a neighbor with a nice land with beautiful stuff, and he goes away, and that land will be divided into 3. And where there was one neighbor with some nice shit, you have 3 or 4 new neighbors, each one with crazy shit. So now there is one situation. So just to conclude, when you buy a land and you have neighbors, especially in mainland, even if it's a whole sim, expect the worst. So count on whatever you're gonna do there. Count, you're gonna have ban lines all around you, even a small parcel or a whole sim. You can have a whole sim and have ban lines on the other sims around you, or like a medium land with a ban line, then a small land no ban line, but suddenly the next land in the border already has a ban line, so you have several columns of ban lines, another big column. So expect the worst, and expect the neighbors to do the most crazy shit visually, server load, of course, because that is also very important. Not only if you like or you don't like what your neighbor's doing. In mainland, it's very usual. If you have a whole sim, that problem will not exist because you have the server for the whole sim. You only have the problem of ban lines and crazy shit being built around you. But if you are in a small parcel, you are in mainland, you are in a parcel that belongs to a sim, and there's a server for that sim. And imagine, like, in that sim of mainland, you have like 4 people, like 3 guys having big lands, and you have a small land, whatever. And it's all cool. Suddenly, one guy goes away, another guy comes, and he starts doing crazy shit, like breathables, stuff that it's really heavy on the server. Only one guy with a medium land or even a small land can be creating a very big load on the whole sim where you have your tiny land, and that crazy shit will cause lag to the whole sim, because the whole sim is a whole sim, even in mainland. Each parcel belongs to a sim. The same size, it's just not an island surrounded by water. So expect the worst. Expect lag, expect ban lines, expect crazy shit going around. When don't you have to worry about your neighbors, even when you are on mainland, a sim, or a small parcel? When your shit is going to be in the sky, when you're going to do a project in the sky, 1,000 meters in the sky, whatever place you want in the sky, and all you're going to build is sky water, sky trees, sky clubs, whatever. In that case, You don't have to worry about what the neighbors will do. The only problem will be if there are guys in the ground bringing a big load in the server and causing lag to the whole sim. But the other problems, ban lines or crazy shit being built, doesn't matter. You are in a sky house, so everything you will do will happen inside their house. Sometimes you can also be in the ground and your whole parcel, it's a massive box you built. Like you can have a skybox in the ground, so you don't need to go outside, and that's also a reason that you don't need to worry about whatever your neighbors will do regarding ban lines, because people, when they land in your land, they are already inside a building, and all your parcel is a building. You don't need people to see the outdoors. So that's another situation. But the problem with the loads in the servers is always the same. Now, when you go into a place and you have certain neighbors, what should you do? Well, if it's a small parcel and you have like 12 neighbors around, it's impossible to... Yeah, sometimes you can have a parcel that goes like this. It's not a square land. If you have a square land, maximum neighbors you're gonna have, it's 4. But if your land is like this, and then it has a part here and a part there, you can have 10 neighbors or 7 or 6 neighbors. So that's very difficult to control, and they're gonna be changing all the time, mostly. But if you are in a quarter of a sim from a private landlord, and you have, or if you are in mainland, but you have you have only one neighbor or two, and it's a massive area, I think it's worth it to visit if you can. Or even if there's a ban line you cannot visit, just like select an item, there is res there, you see who's the owner of the land, or you can do about land and see who's the owner of the land at that time, your neighbor, and send him a message saying, hi, I'm your new neighbor, I'm gonna do this project like this. If there's any problem, let me know. I want to be okay with you. I like your land, blah, 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 blah. That helps. I think it's always good. If it's a mainland shitty 10 neighbors or 4 neighbors, I don't think it's worth it. But you can try it. It's also better to do it than not do it. But look, even then, expect that beautiful neighbor to go away 1 week from now, or maybe tomorrow, and get crazy neighbors completely different. So one thing another problem you can have is like when you have a parcel and your neighbor builds something and part of the building is on your parcel. Sometimes you have your parcel, your neighbor builds something, and there's just a little part going into your parcel. That is not counting for your prims, okay? If you can res 500 prims and a part of your neighbors is going into your land, you still can res your 500 prims. What probably is happening most of the times, it's unless there is an object moved to your land, but then he cannot, if it's a single object, it will be returned, he cannot move it to your land, it will be like dislocated. But sometimes a whole building, a complex building, has a part in your land. The root of, if the building is still there, is because the root of the building, each building, most buildings are made of several prims, and there's always a root prim. The yellow prim, when you select, is the yellow prim, and it's the prim that counts for the land. And that prim surely is in your neighbor, so only the tip, a little 2 or 3 prims are sticking into your land, but they shouldn't be. But then you should again see who is the guy, edit the object, or about land, see the neighbor, and send him a message. But either you are complaining to your neighbor politely, like sometimes it's not on purpose. Look, many people, they buy their land, they put their things, but many people is not savvy in terms of placing stuff, and some people has a lot of difficulty in how to place stuff, and sometimes people don't do it on purpose. Like he has a building, there's a little part going into your parcel, it's bothering you. Of course you have the right to have your own parcel, even if it's a tiny parcel, but sometimes it's not on purpose, or it's not like negligent, like they don't care about you. No, it's that like they are not savvy, they didn't put it right, and they didn't notice it was going inside. So don't expect like everything is done on purpose and go to war, let's report this guy. By the way, reporting to Linden Labs, I've been 16 years around Second Life, and I can tell you, either is some serious illegal stuff going on, and you have pictures or documents, and you do a report in something real harsh and illegal. Either is someone trolling around and there are 20 different people, like 5 different people reporting the same person. Either is a serious case and Linden Labs pay attention, but like, oh, I'm gonna report you because you insulted me, I'm gonna report. Look, nothing is gonna happen. Linden Lab doesn't have time or people to take care of those tiny little things, so you should deal with them. But either you are just saying, hello, I'm your neighbor doing this, how are you, like your land, la la la. Either you are trying to solve a problem of something going into your land. Expect it to take time. Some people, they just build their stuff and they have their land and they spend 1 week, sometimes even more, even you do it, without going into Second Life. So just because a piece of his building is going into your land and you send him a message and 3 days gone by and he didn't say anything, he or she, doesn't mean they don't care about you and they are shitting on you. Maybe they haven't logged since then, so be patient, okay? But that's the thing. If you wanna, your project needs to have good looks around the ocean, or you need your theme to be in harmony with the themes around, don't go into mainland. Even for a whole sim, don't go into mainland unless you're in the sky or unless you have a whole building on your parcel and everything happens indoor and you don't care. So pretty much this is what I have to tell you from my experience about Second Life. I don't think I forgot anything. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed. If you find these videos useful, hit me with a like and subscription and notification bell, and follow my crazy Elysium project, which is crazy, but it's very real and it's gonna fucking happen. Thank you so much.